A seat among the stars. The Galactic Council chamber shimmered with light refracted from 100 worlds. Floating crystals kept the massive hall suspended above the gas giant Senma, the chosen neutral world for interspecies diplomacy. The chamber was circular, lined with tiers of ornate seats. At the far end, where the newest members sat, the human delegation remained still. General Adrienne Vale did not speak. She sat with military rigidity, back straight, arms folded loosely behind her. Her uniform was stark and undecorated, save for the small, dark insignia of Earth Terran Defense Command on her shoulder. Her skin bore the faint marks of old injuries, and her eyes, a muted steel gray, scanned the chamber with a predator's patience. The seat beside her, meant for the human ambassador, was empty. Still no diplomat, sneered Councillor Varnak of the Othal Dominion. His voice boomed, deep and guttural, from his armored bulk. He stood nearly 9 feet tall, draped in gold-trimmed battle plating, his reptilian maw curled into a smile that showed too many teeth. Perhaps the humans think their warriors can do the speaking now. A few members of the council chuckled, a wet clicking from the insectoid colonies of Vetrax, a hissing trill from the gaseous-bodied Zunari. Others remained silent, waiting. Vale didn't answer. She merely turned her head, slowly, and met Varnak's eyes. The silence was heavier than any words. Councillor Nezith of the Helians, a tall avian species with shimmering white plumage, leaned slightly forward, watching her. He tapped his data slate with one talon, then addressed the chamber. Let it be noted that General Vale is here as Earth's appointed observer until their diplomat recovers from orbital injuries sustained last cycle. He paused. Until then, she retains full legal presence. Legal, Varnak spat, but not competent. You send a Deathworld soldier to a table of peace. That is a threat by any name. Nezith tilted his head. The Othal Dominion has sent a war fleet as their delegation for 3 consecutive sessions. Shall we debate posturing, or proceed to matters of trade? Varnak growled, but stepped back. The council moved on, discussing economic flows, border disputes, and migration routes. Vale didn't speak once. She listened. She catalogued every movement, every species priority, every name spoken, and every insult left half-implied. That was her training: observe, assess, act. They called her Deathworlder not as flattery, but in fey. Earth's status as a Class 4 hazard world meant its native life, including humans, had evolved under extremes most species couldn't survive. To the Council, humanity was primitive, brutal, unrefined. Vale didn't care what they thought. Her mind drifted briefly to a jungle moon on the edge of human union space. She remembered smoke, the hiss of alien plasma through leaves, her squad pinned in the mud. 5 humans against a battalion of Xenos. She remembered crawling through razorgrass, flanking the enemy, knife clenched between her teeth. That night, they had won. Barely. Her squad hadn't made it. She had. She always did. Earth's colony on Kyrian IV violates Othal territorial doctrine, Varnak announced, interrupting her memories. They expand without permission. This is aggression. The room fell quiet. Vale turned toward him fully, her gaze cold and measured. Nezith responded before she could. Kyrian IV was unclaimed until 5 cycles ago. The humans terraformed it with full council clearance. Varnak spread his arms. Then the council is weak, and the humans, audacious. A lower species building strongholds near Dominion borders. Perhaps we must teach humility. Do you challenge Earth? Nezith asked, voice clipped. Varnak's eyes flicked to Vale. I question whether they belong here at all. That was the moment. General Adrienne Vale stood. The act was simple. No weapons. No words. Just a rise to her full height. A movement fluid, controlled, silent. The chamber quieted as even those uninterested in Earth turned to watch. Her voice, when it came, was low. Not loud, not threatening, just precise. Try. The word echoed. One syllable. A challenge, not to diplomacy, but to the presumption that humanity would submit. Varnak's grin twisted. Is that acceptance of the right? Nezith inhaled sharply. General, You understand what you suggest. Vale's eyes never left Varnak. If the Othal Dominion wishes a challenge under Council Code, I will answer it. But know this, Varnak. Her words cut the air like a blade. I've buried creatures twice your size and half your intelligence. You think me a diplomat, but I am warm-made flesh. Gasps and trills spread across the chamber. Varnak's amusement faded to something colder, more focused. The council fell into stunned silence. Councilor Nezith blinked, feathers slightly ruffled. Then the rite shall be arranged, by law. At dawn cycle, Vale sat again. She didn't smile. She didn't nod. She simply waited, blood between the words. The council chamber was quieter than usual the next cycle. Conversations, typically led in diplomatic doublespeak, were reduced to whispered speculation. Cameras had been deployed. The news feeds of 100 systems now tracked the Rite of Challenge, an ancient and rarely invoked provision in the Council's founding code. At the center of the storm, General Adrienne Vale stood by a window of hexaglass, hands behind her back, gazing out at the swirling violet clouds of Senma's atmosphere. She had slept for 3 hours, run drills for 2, and meditated for 1. Her pulse was steady, her mind calm. Footsteps approached. General Vale, said a careful voice. She turned. Ambassador Roltek had arrived, limping, still wrapped in medical bindings from the orbital shuttle crash that had delayed his attendance. His expression was a mixture of relief and exasperation. You couldn't wait 2 more days until I was out of bed. She offered a ghost of a smile. I didn't start it. He sighed and limped closer. They expected a brute. I told them you were a soldier. I didn't tell them you were a predator. I'm both, she replied. You realize what this has become? Varnak didn't just bait you. He baited all of humanity. If you lose. I don't lose, she said simply. Roltek studied her for a long moment. We were meant to make allies, hey. Instead, you're going to kill one of the most feared generals in the quadrant. Good, she said. Let the rest take notes. The council reconvened hours later. Councilor Nezith presided from the central dais. By invocation of Article 17, the Rite of Challenge has been formally entered into council record. General Adrienne Vale of Oath will face General Varnak of the Othal Dominion at dawn cycle. The outcome will resolve the disputed claim on Kyrian IV. Murmurs rippled through the gallery above. Thousands of delegates, aides, and military attachés had arrived for the spectacle. News feeds floated in translucent panels across the chamber, broadcasting the proceedings live to 10,000 systems. Varnak stood to speak. He didn't need amplification. His voice reverberated like a beast's roar. We have tolerated the presence of these humans for too long. They colonize worlds too close to our borders. They fight like cornered vermin, and now they dare sit in these chambers as equals. He gestured at Vale. I will break their symbol. I will scatter their pride. He drew a long ceremonial blade from his hip and stabbed it into the floor before him, a sign of oath. By combat, the Dominion claims Kyrian IV. Councilor Nezith turned to Vale. General. She rose, slowly, and looked over the room. She didn't make speeches. She walked to the center dais, placed a single item on the floor beside Varnak's massive blade. A combat knife, military standard issue, carbon-edged. It looked like a child's toy in comparison. I accept, she said. The council chamber went still. For the first time, the other species began to sense it. Not bravado, not arrogance, but certainty. She wasn't posturing. She was simply telling the truth. Later, in a private chamber, Councilor Nezith found her alone. You chose a knife. I don't need anything more, she replied. You could have sent a proxy. I'm the proxy. Nezith regarded her quietly. Do you know why I believe in your people, General? She looked at him, waiting. Because you come from death. Your world tried to kill you before the stars ever did. Most species here evolved in harmony. You evolved in adversity. You were forged. Vale said nothing, but a flicker of respect passed between them. Nezith's tone grew softer. Still, I must ask, why not wait? Why take the challenge? Vale exhaled. Because he meant to humiliate us. Because if I let him, every species watching would learn the same lesson. that humans fold under pressure, that our silence is weakness. I won't let that become our reputation." Nezith nodded. "Then let us hope the galaxy is ready to learn a different lesson." Back in the preparation chamber, Vale ran diagnostics on her reflex modulator and performed final stretches. Roltech entered, watching her move with surgical grace. "I've seen Varnak fight before," he said quietly. "He's not just muscle. He's fast, tactical. You won't win by brute strength." "I know," Vale replied. "He's a warlord." "Then how will you beat him?" She looked at him, eyes calm. "I've killed worse." That night, across the galaxy, the feeds lit up with a single image, a small human woman facing down a titan in gold armor. The chamber had been reshaped into an arena of stone and steel. Dozens of dignitaries filled the observation seats, and the rest watched through projection or broadcast. The Rite would be witnessed. The Rite would be binding. No rules, no interference. One death. Varnak waited in the arena center, blade in hand. His armor gleamed under the lights. Vale stepped out onto the arena floor, her boots clicking softly. No armor, no fanfare, just her uniform, her knife, and the weight of every fallen comrade she carried in silence. The crowd buzzed with anticipation. Some whispered prayers. Some sharpened their knives. Most prepared to watch the end of a human dream. But Nezith, he leaned forward, watching with eyes like frost fire. Because he had seen it. He knew what was coming. The rite of challenge. The arena was silent. Not from reverence, but from anticipation. Death was expected, and the crowd came to see whose. General Adrienne Vale stood on one side of the council's ritual dueling platform. No armor, no helmet. Her stance was relaxed, weight balanced on the balls of her feet, knife held in reverse grip at her side. Her expression unreadable. Across from her, General Varnak stood in ceremonial battle gear, thick with lead plating, his crimson cloak dragging in the dust. His plasma-forged war blade glowed faintly, a weapon that had gutted armored transports and decapitated prisoners. The announcer's voice echoed through the chamber. By the laws of the Galactic Accord, we witnessed the rite of challenge between General Varnak of the Othal Dominion and General Adrienne Vale of the Terran Defense Command. No interference. No weapons beyond those declared. No surrender. A pause. Begin. Varnak moved first. He didn't charge like an animal. He advanced like a tactician. Blade ready, posture grounded. Despite his size, he was fast, covering ground with long, loping strides, feet pounding against the alloy floor. Vale didn't retreat. She sidestepped. The first swing came in hard, an overhead cleave that would have split most soldiers in two. Vale was already gone, sliding left, ducking low. The blade howled past her, cracking the stone where it landed. She flicked her wrist. A shallow cut opened on Varnak's thigh. Not deep, not fatal, but fast. The crowd murmured. Varnak snarled and pivoted, his tail lashing, aiming a sideways slash. Vale darted backward, barely, then rolled under the follow-up strike. Her knife flashed again, a second cut just above the elbow joint in his armor. "You bleed," she said softly. Varnak bellowed and launched a flurry of attacks, precise, disciplined, brutal. His blade blurred through the air with centuries of battlefield experience behind every motion. It should have overwhelmed her. But Vale was from Earth, from jungles that killed in silence, from deserts that cooked bones beneath armor, from ruined cities crawling with invisible insurgents and engineered predators. She didn't fight like a duelist. She fought like a Deathworlder. She evaded, not with elegance, but efficiency, tight angles, narrow windows, using every inch of the arena as terrain. She didn't block, because blocking was a waste of energy. She didn't parry, because the cost of failure was death. She cut, tiny incisions, weak points in armor, gaps in plating, the inside of a knee, the underside of a wrist, the junction of the shoulder. And still, she said nothing. Varnak's rage grew. "Fight me," he roared. "Stand and fight, coward." Vale spun under his guard and drove the edge of her knife across the tendons of his left hand. His grip faltered. The blade dropped an inch. "You want me to fight like you," she said, Finally. You think that's honor. But this isn't your world. He slammed his fist down where she had been a moment ago, cracking the ground. Blood dripped from his arm now, thick and dark. She moved behind him and struck once, deep, just below the ribs. Varnak roared, spinning, catching her shoulder with a grazing backhand. She staggered but stayed upright. He pressed, seizing the moment, driving forward with one final charge. She didn't dodge. She stepped into the strike. To those watching, it looked like suicide. His blade came down, and her body turned into it. Too late, too slow. But then, her free hand caught his wrist. Her body twisted inside his arc, too close for the blade to reach full power. And her knife went up, under his chin, through the soft part of the throat, into the brainstem. Varnak froze. A horrible choking noise escaped him. He staggered back, dropping his weapon, hands clutching at the hilt embedded in his jaw. Vale watched as he collapsed to his knees. And then, finally, face down, dead. The arena was still. Nezith stood. The Rite is decided. General Adrienne Vale of Earth is victorious. The claim on Kyrian IV is resolved. No further contest shall be accepted. Gasps. Silence. A stunned pause across the galaxy. Then, slowly, applause. It began with Nezith's wings brushing together. Then others joined, nervous, hesitant. Some sat in shock. A few stayed at Vale with new wariness. Others, with awe. She didn't raise her arms in triumph. She didn't speak. She walked to her fallen opponent, pulled her knife free, cleaned it on his cloak, and walked out of the arena. Later, in a council corridor, Roltek caught up with her, still limping. You made your point. I didn't come here to make a point, she said. I came to make sure Earth would never be laughed at again. And now, he asked. She looked back toward the arena. Her face was still, controlled. Now they'll listen. A new voice in the void. The day after the Rite, the council chamber was full, but different. Gone were the whispers and sideways glances. Gone was the snickering behind folded mandibles and armored lips. Every delegate now watched General Adrienne Vale as she entered, not as a curiosity, but as something new. A reckoning. She took her place at the human seat without ceremony. No fanfare, no flag. Just a plain uniform and a pair of sharp eyes. Her shoulder was bandaged beneath the fabric where Varnak had struck her, but she moved as if nothing had touched her. Councillor Nezith rose from the center. His feathers were immaculately groomed, but his voice held gravity. The Rite has concluded. Let the record show that Earth has fulfilled the conditions of the challenge. The Council recognizes their right to Kyrian IV and retains them as a full voting member species. A ripple of acknowledgement passed through the chamber. It wasn't applause. It was something heavier, respect. Councillor Varesh of the Vetrax Hive buzzed in acknowledgement. General Vale, the Hive regrets its prior assumptions. We retract our opposition to your colony initiatives. Councillor Ilana of the Threni Confederacy, crystalline and ethereal in her hovering carapace, spoke next. We request trade negotiations between Earth and Threni biofabricators. Your medical advancements during wartime impressed our biologists. Even Councillor Fereth of the cold-blooded Drax Empire gave a slow nod. You have our attention. Vale inclined her head once. Noted. Roltek entered behind her and took the ambassador's chair. The difference was stark. Yesterday, he was a diplomat in exile. Today, he was the envoy of a feared and respected power. He leaned toward Vale and whispered, You realize what you've done, don't you? She didn't look at him. I stopped a war. No, he said, glancing around the chamber. You started something else entirely. By midday, the Council released its official statement to the wider galaxy. The challenge was just. The human victory was undisputed. Kyrian IV belongs to Earth. The message sparked waves. On frontier worlds, human settlers stood taller. In quiet barracks on distant moons, human soldiers grinned and passed the recording around. One general, one blade, one dead warlord. On Dominion worlds, protests broke out. Some decried the humiliation. Others feared retaliation. A few demanded war, but within the council, the tone changed. Earth was no longer seen as the wild, underdeveloped outlier. They had proven something few species ever could, that they were willing to bleed for their right to exist, and that they could win. Later that cycle, Vale stood in a quiet observatory deck, alone but not isolated. Below her, the atmosphere of Senma glowed in brilliant colors, golden storms folding into themselves, turbulent but beautiful. Nezith appeared beside her. "You've unsettled the balance," he said gently. Vale didn't look away. It needed unsettling. He gave a soft trill of amusement. "Do you know how long it has been since a challenge was answered with steel and survived?" She shook her head. 600 years. Most use proxies, duels by tradition only. Yours was raw, brutal. It reminded us why that law exists. Then maybe the council will remember why Earth's here. Nezith regarded her, serious now. Earth could rise very high, very fast. But that means more enemies, stronger threats. The Dominion will not forget this, nor forgive it. "I'm counting on it," Vale said. "Let them come." Nezith exhaled. "And what will you do now?" "The war is over," the challenge answered. "The council has accepted you." She turned to him. Her eyes weren't hard now, just focused. "Now we build. Earth doesn't want an empire. We want a place. We want our voice heard, our children safe, and our dead remembered. That's all. Then why come yourself? Why not send a proxy, like the others?" She was quiet for a long moment before answering. "Because you don't build a voice by whispering from behind someone else." A week later, Vale boarded a diplomatic transport bound for Earth. The human delegation would remain, expanding relations, finalizing treaties, and growing Earth's influence in the Council. But her mission was complete. As she stood at the threshold of the ship, reporters and delegates called out, "General Vale, one question." She paused. An Othel journalist, trembling slightly, asked, "Do you have any message for the Dominion now that you've defeated their general?" Vale considered it. Then she said only one thing. "Next time, send two." The doors closed behind her. Epilogue. On Kyrian IV, human colonists raised their flag beneath twin suns. Children played near irrigation fields. Engineers finished solar towers. And on a stone plinth at the center of the settlement, they mounted a plaque. "Let none doubt our claim." Beneath it, a smaller inscription, dedicated to those who fought with silence, with steel, and with purpose. "Earth stands, because we do not kneel."